2 weeks ago, Donald Trump rocked the world economy with sweeping tariffs on America's trading partners. Since then, he's backtracked on aspects of the policy, but British imports are still facing a baseline 10% levy. But for how long? It appears that trade talks between the US and the UK have been making good progress, and Trump's Vice President, Vance, has raised hopes of a deal. He told the Unheard website that, "I think there's a good chance that we'll come to a great agreement that's in best interests of both countries." Well, it's a message that has been well received at Westminster.
Negotiations are ongoing. We welcome the comments from the Vice President, of course, and we believe we're in a good position to come to a good agreement with the USA. We don't believe that tariffs or trade wars are good for anybody, and we will be doing what we can to secure the future of jobs and industry here in the UK.
This evening, we spoke with the leading businesswoman, Marie Macklin, who sits on the board of the Scottish North American Business Council. So what have you made of what JD Vance has been saying then?
Well, it's been an interesting couple of weeks, Rona, regarding the trade deals and tariffs. And I welcome the fact that JD Vance is out this morning saying that he's hopeful that we're going to get a decent deal for the UK economy. How that looks will be the devil in the detail, but I would hope that there'll be proactiveness regarding whisky and the salmon and our great tech industry here in Scotland.
And how confident are you that these talks between the UK and the US are going well?
I think we can only see it as face value just now, Rona. Donald Trump is transactional. He is a New York property dealer when you take away that word president, and it'll be what is the trade-offs here. I mean, if you look into 2019, there was a 25% tariff on Scottish whisky that was stood down until 2026. So where are we starting here? Are we starting with the 25% plus the 10%, or are we starting at the 10% tariff? So it will be in the detail, but if you look at the markets last week, 8 trillion in one day swiped off the markets, but the US market is worth 33 trillion. And again with China, the magnitude of China, is it that large? Because they only import 1.5% the US from China.
How do you think the UK government has been playing this?
I think they've been playing it the correct way. When we saw the Prime Minister deliver the letter and the content of that letter, the soft skills is the way to play it.
Yeah, especially compared to the fury that we saw from other countries.
Absolutely. And the fact of the matter is, you need the soft skills, but this is a city dealer, and it will come down at the end to strong. You have to be strong, you have to be at the table, and you have to be in it to win it. And I'm hoping that the UK government, they are definitely in it to win it. But the bigger question again, Rona, is where does the Scottish government fit in here? Have they got a seat at the table during these negotiations? Because if they haven't, they should, because the government ministers are tirelessly there every day, working on the ground, Monday to Sunday, with our businesses here at the sharp end.
Trump has a great fondness for the UK, he says, particularly Scotland. Will that play in our favour?
I think it will. I mean, I come from Ayrshire, and he has the Trump Hotel, £100 million investment, over 400 people employed there, and in excess, I think it's £10 million in wages out of there. It's a place that the Americans come to, the golfers, and Prestwick Airport is huge, and getting revenue from the private jets that come in there. So he loves Scotland. He is, in theory, he would love to be seen as an ambassador of Scotland. So again, it's where do you play the soft skills?
So how important is it that this 10% tariff is taken away then? What kind of effect will that have on Scottish businesses?
I think it will have a huge effect. I mean, just now, it's the last thing we need in the current climate. Yesterday, I met with the First Minister, and we can come to that in a minute, but we talked about resilience and investment into Scotland. There is plenty of people who want to invest in Scotland, and Scotland is open for business, Rona.
Have we seen any effect on Scottish business so far since Trump introduced these tariffs a couple of weeks ago, or is it too still early to tell? I mean, there has been a heck of a lot of uncertainty with the global markets. Absolutely.
As I explained earlier, it's been turmoil in the markets, but if you look at the markets last week, the bond markets in London were getting huge investments in from the US economy. That can only be good for the UK economy. I think there's bigger questions we need to look at here, Rona, in the UK market. 11,000 people moved out of London in the last couple of months. They're going to Dubai and they're going to the US for new lives. There's something wrong with the UK economy when that's happening.
As you said, you met with the First Minister this week. What was your message to him about the economy?
Well, I was great privilege to go to Butte House yesterday at the request of First Minister to talk about Scotland's resilience, economy, regeneration, jobs and inward investment from his trip that he had been to in New York. And that resilience is a really important word, Rona. If I can come back to what happened at the weekend, we saw at the weekend the UK government stepping up and supporting the community of Scunthorpe in relation to British Steel, which is a Chinese-owned company. The First Minister had every right yesterday to protect the Scottish people and make a statement on where do we go with resilience, because there's a headwind certainly coming. Last time I was on your show, I made a call to action on the Grangemouth situation. And that situation resulted in huge feedback from your viewers. From that feedback, I decided to write to the First Minister of Scotland and put on the table, we need a better deal for Scotland.
And he's now calling for Grangemouth to be nationalised, and that's what you want now as well. But how would that be done, though, and how much would it cost?
My position is this. If the UK government, and I agree with what the UK government did, but the bigger heroes here are actually the unions and the workers at Scunthorpe who had that call to action. The same has happened with the Grangemouth workers. Mm-hmm. We now have a project, Willow, which requires £3.5 billion investment. We cannot continue to make the same mistake at UK government level on industrial policy that results in failure.
But the UK government is saying there's no equivalence between Grangemouth Oil Refinery and British Steel at Scunthorpe.
I think that's totally disingenuous to the Scottish people and the workforce of Grangemouth.
But there are other oil refineries, you know, in the rest of the UK, and there's only one steel plant that makes primary steel, and that's what they say is the distinction.
Absolutely, and there's only one oil refinery in Scotland. And for me personally, it's now time to get the game on and look at Grangemouth in a different capacity. You have a company there who have a report that has been part funded by the UK and the Scottish Government that basically saying we've got carbon capture projects here that require £3.5 billion investment. £3.5 billion investment in a good market is hard. It's even harder in a difficult market. For me, if we choose to put money into these projects at the forefront of pioneering projects, the same as oil and gas was way back in the 60s and 70s, we should be taking equity in these projects. The same as Inuits have a project in Denmark where the Danish government, a carbon capture project, Green Sands project, they have a 20% equity, protecting the public purse and future investment.
OK, we'll have to leave it there. But Marie, thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you very much.